Fallout 4 updates have been a disaster. And with a new update being released yesterday, it's time we take a look at whether Bethesda has finally addressed some of the long-standing issues with the game and whether this update is actually worth the collateral damage. As with every update, Fallout 4 script extender and mods that require it have once again been broken and will require updates to support the latest version of the game. And we'll be going over everything, including the update itself, major issues not addressed by Bethesda Game Studios with this update, how you can go about downgrading the game to get your mod list back up and running, how to block future updates to safeguard your mod list moving forward, and some other very special goodies for Fallout 4 that I've been dying to discuss. So let's begin with the good news, that being the entire purpose of this new August 18th update, which brings the game version to 1.11.240 on Steam, as this is actually a major upgrade for some when it comes to modding Fallout 4, and not just an entirely meaningless creations update as Bethesda had suggested when they initially announced it. As Fallout 4 has finally been updated with an increased BA2 archive limit, bringing the old limits of 256 up to 1024. Which is intended to accommodate larger collections of mods. And this is honestly one of the more notable changes BGS have made to Fallout 4 in the past several years. As a quick explanation, BA2 archives are the asset packages that contain things like textures, meshes, sounds, and other assets, and are greatly preferred over loading the loose files. So while this doesn't necessarily mean you'll suddenly be able to install 4 times the amount of mods, it will help in situations that you would have hit a BA2 archive limit, resulting in assets not loading correctly or the game crashing entirely. And it's a limit that affects all platforms, and it's a hard limitation on console. As well, PC users could get around it by merging BA2 archives or unpacking them to loose files. That's still required steps that many users aren't comfortable with, and in the case of unpacking to loose files, could also come with some notable performance issues. But that's also not the only major upgrade for modding with this update, as archives are now supported on PlayStation with several new file types, which means that yes, custom assets are now officially supported on PlayStation. This is a huge win, and something that PlayStation players have been begging for ever since console mods dropped nearly 10 years ago back in 2016, and it opens a whole new world of modding for those players. We're already starting to see a number of custom asset mods making their way to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, such as animation replacers, new creatures, body replacers, and a slew of new weapon mods. And mod authors such as Eleonora are already promising to port some of their mods over to PlayStation following this new update. That said, as for the other Creation Kit updates, Bing files can now be added to creation uploads via an extra files browser, added localization export support, creations up to 2 GB in size can now be uploaded for Xbox, updated search and replace to align with Starfield, adding buttons for select form in object window and open form editor, as well as numerous other bug fixes for the Creation Kit. As for the game itself, we saw 3 crash-related fixes, including a crash when opening the virtual keyboard on Steam Deck, a major crash that could occur during an audio streaming error, and a crash on the Microsoft Store version of the game when trying to enter the Creations menu after resuming internet connectivity. We also got 3 new bug fixes relating to creations, including exiting out of search when viewing a specific creation now properly returns you to the details page of that creation. Creations category lists should now return order results more consistently, and error messages from the Bethesda.net service now contain error codes that can be provided to customer service for investigation. So as someone who was expecting this update to be nothing but an annoyance, I cannot stress enough how significant this update is for a lot of people. As not only is the BA2 archive limit increase a substantial upgrade for all platforms, even though they really should have just uncapped it, it will still solve a lot of headaches when it comes to modding the game, especially for those on console, where it is a hard limitation. But custom asset support for PlayStation, while it doesn't benefit me directly, is a huge win for console modding on that platform, especially considering PlayStation almost didn't even get mod support back when it was initially introduced. And with Bethesda announcing that a new update for Skyrim Special Edition is coming, I think it's safe to assume that custom asset support will be included. Now on to the bad news, because as is tradition with each and every update to the game, Fallout 4 script extender, address library, and mods that require them were broken by this update. And while Fallout 4 script extender has already been updated to support the new update, address library has not, which means that despite the script extender being up to date, most mod lists and FRC plugins will still not be compatible with this update at the time of working on this video. That said, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it has been updated by the time this video is even uploaded, as it usually only takes a few days. Thankfully, many F4SC plugins that use address library shouldn't require individual updates to support this new version once address library itself is updated. But F4SC plugins that don't utilize address library will still require individual updates by their mod authors, and that includes mod configuration menu, something that is critical for customizing settings for a lot of F4SC mods. Beyond that though, non-F4SC mods seem to be unaffected as anticipated. No major NPC bug with this update, which I'd say is one of the more important things to note about this update is that it's unlike the disastrous release of the next-gen updates and anniversary update, which both introduced game and mod-breaking issues that plagued the game for several months at a time. So we don't have to sit around waiting 18 months for BGS to fix it. That being said, if you happen to have gotten caught off guard by this update and your mod list depends on the previous or an even older version of the game, my new Fallout 4 downgrade tutorial will be linked on screen and down in the description, and if the simple Fallout 4 downgrader by carts is updated, I'll make an updated video for that as well, considering it's a lot easier than the manual downgrade method. But if you'd rather stick with this new update, which I'd honestly highly suggest doing once things are up to date, and you just like to protect your current mod list from any future updates on Steam, I'll also link to my updated tutorial on how to fully block Steam updates. Now, despite this update coming with some meaningful upgrades, the game is still plagued with major issues, primarily on PC, some of which have existed since launch. And I think it's important that I keep bringing these up in hopes that one day we might see official fixes. As this game still suffers from the usual issues with their built-in VSync, as monitors beyond 120Hz don't properly cap the frame rate within a safe range for the game engine, that being 60 FPS. As going beyond 60 FPS results in physics, game time, and loading to break exponentially. That means in order to play Fallout 4 Vanilla, that being without mods, you need to go into your GPU driver settings and cap the game at around 60 FPS, or worse, follow Bethesda's suggestion and lower your monitor's refresh rate, just to play the vanilla game. And the issue with capping the game to 60 FPS is that it causes substantially longer load times, as load times are also tied to the frame rates. Thankfully, there is a mod to resolve all these issues on PC, that being the High FPS Physics Fix by Antonix 35, which resolves all the notable issues with an uncapped frame rates and load times. But that's sadly not the only major issue that BGS has left unresolved on PC, as the weapon debris crash on modern NVIDIA GPUs is still present, meaning that if you have the setting enabled, especially on higher ultra, the game will crash whenever weapon debris collides with surfaces. This is still reproducible after this new update, despite Bethesda previously promising a fix several updates ago. So again, if you're wanting to resolve this with a mod, Weapon Debris Crash Fix, also by Antonix 35, resolves the crashing. It does come with the downside of disabling the collision on debris, so there is a less tested mod, that being Flex Revive by Anti-Roo 7, which claims to fully resolve the crashing issues while retaining Weapon Debris' features. And I could go on, as there are so many other technical issues, performance issues, and game-breaking bugs still present in Fallout 4 that were never addressed. But it's doubtful we'll see most of it ever fixed officially, considering the game is well over a decade old. But at the bare minimum, I am still adamant that they need to address the refresh rate issue. It is a critical issue that makes the vanilla game unplayable for people with high refresh rate monitors without manual modification, which is unacceptable considering it's the most recent mainline entry in the franchise and a lot of new fans' entry point. Now, beyond fixes, there is one feature that Bethesda Game Studios should push to the PC version of Fallout 4, which was recently added to the Nintendo Switch 2 version of both Fallout 4 and Skyrim Special Edition, that being native DLSS support. As while Fallout 4 isn't the most demanding game in the world, it would still be a fantastic addition for anti-aliasing and would bring more performance stability to GPU-heavy areas, assisting with a more stable 60 FPS cap or even higher frame rates with the High FPS Physics Fix, especially for lower-end GPUs that support DLSS. And in the process, they could also add FSR. That said, as is almost always the case, there is a mod for that, which brings me to some of the very special goodies for Fallout 4 that I mentioned I've been dying to discuss, as Fallout 4 has been receiving some major new mods since the last time I made an update video. As more recently, we have seen mods like Smooth Cell Loading by Zix, which addresses the stutter that occurs when entering or loading new cells, Stuck LOD Fix by Zix, which resolves the distant LOD getting stuck after loading into an area, Motion Vector Fixes by Doodleum, which fixes critical bugs with rendering related to TAA, motion blur, upscaling, and frame generation, upscaling by Doodleum, which implements full support for DLSS 4 and FSR 3.1 upscaling, as well as DLAA support for E&B, frame generation by Doodleum, which implements FSR's frame generation feature, and Addictall by Perchik71, which combines several major engine fix patches into one mod. Of course, none of these currently work with the latest version of the game due to requiring a headrest library or individual updates to support it, but once everything is up to date, I highly suggest checking them out. You probably already know about their existence, but I really wanted to mention them. And while there are plenty of other mods that have released recently that I would love to cover, we'll have to save those for another time, as it's almost time to discuss Skyrim's new updates. But if you're wanting something to watch in the meantime and aren't tired of listening to me, then you probably missed my video where we did a deep dive on the future of Bethesda game studios, including everything coming for Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and Starfield, which you can find on screen now. But that's it for this video. Thanks as always for watching, and until next time, this is Apoqsi, signing off.